video. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow to help me out. I can only keep creating with you, and it takes all of your help and promotion in order to get my work out there. So today we're going to be doing a video on making polymer clay witch's hat charms, and it's going to be super fun. Halloween is coming up, so let's get started. To start these witches hats, we just need some white polymer clay so that we can paint it later and we don't have to worry about running out of any certain color. We need a flat surface. I like to use this for smashing. A clean surface to actually do our work on. This is a marble pastry board, but you can use any smooth, clean, glossy surface that you like, including a ceramic tile or even a pane of glass. Just make sure that you're safe. I have a thing of cornstarch for rubbing out fingerprints, a blade for cutting our polymer clay block so that our pieces are nice and uniform for consistency, and also so that I can keep track of how much clay I'm using and be able to better price my projects. But if you're not worried about pricing or consistency, you don't really need to worry about what you're cutting it with or how even your cuts are. And then I have this neat little tool just for doing some work. This is one of my favorites because it has the knife edge and the nice little bumpy edge for smashing things in. And lastly, there's this cute little eye pin. We're going to use that. It's an optional thing, but in order to make this a charm and not just a trinket, that's what we're going to use. Make sure that you work your polymer clay. It's an oil-based clay, so you don't have to worry about it drying out while you're working with it. You just have to make sure that you try to keep any dust, hair, or any kind of fibers out of it, because once they're in there, they're pretty tough to get out. And we're gonna roll it into a nice little ball, make sure that it's really well worked. Then we're gonna kind of gauge where about half of that is, and then take a little less for our first marble. It's gonna be about the size of a normal marble, what you would use for like jacks or something like that. Take it and smash it down with your flat surface. You can use a rolling pin, but I like smashing it straight down because then you don't have to worry about making all your edges and everything perfectly round and even. It just kind of does it. Then take your blade and gently saw up underneath your little circle. That way you can release it and you don't have to worry about distorting it. If you distort it, it doesn't really matter. It's a witch's hat. If it's a little rough and tumble, it doesn't really make a difference. And I usually do a little distorting anyways. So once you have that kind of worked out and you've released it, you want to go ahead and get your second ball ready. And this one's going to be about the same size or a little bit bigger than your first one. That one's probably about the same, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more just to make sure that your hat is actually going to be bigger than the brim of the hat. Otherwise it would be disproportionate and look kind of funny. So once you have your second marble, you're just going to start pinching and rolling and twisting to form like a peak, almost like a kiss. And I like to add some texture here, so I will actually manually twist in some folds just like there would be in like fabric or leather. And then once you got your little tip, just kind of pinch it on the end to make it a little sharp. And then I like to have a nice little fold and swoop. Kind of gives it a little character. Don't worry about making this super flat, because when you press it down onto here, you don't want a pocket down there if it was flat, and then this will also create the suction, just making sure it's nicely pressed on here. We're just going to press down on the bottom so we don't ruin any of the detail that we did on the top. Making sure that it's pretty centered. If it's not perfectly centered, it's not the end of the world. It's polymer clay, so it's really easy to mold and move. Kind of slice that up so that you can get it off of the board without pulling the edges of your clay. It depends on your humidity and temperature on how moldable your clay is going to be. I don't have air conditioning, so mine's usually pretty soft. Once you've got the brim of your hat worked out the way you want it, you just want to take this other little tool and you can set it down or you can pick it up to do this, but you're just going to take and press along the bottom here and kind of make like a little band or some cordage or a rope or whatever you want to call it. However you want to design it. You can put little plates in it if you really want to be super deliberate, or you can just go around the edge. And it doesn't matter how neat or how perfect you think that you should make it. It's just however it works for you. And I find that if I just kind of play with it a little bit, I get the shape that I want. Just don't stress about it. It's supposed to be fun. It's a hobby craft. It's a hobby, and hobbies are fun. So just kind of play with it until you get the shape that you want. I like a nice thick band. It's really deliberate and separate from the piece. It kind of creates a little separation between the top pointy part of your hat and the brim of your hat. And once you've got that all worked in, you can just kind of go around and smooth the edges, make it a little more uniform if you want. If you don't want it to be uniform, that's up to you. Another reason I like this tool is because I can kind of flatten it out and get rid of any extra hard surfaces here that are going to make it a little less realistic, if you will. And if you gouge it like I just did, don't worry, because that just adds character. It's just going to create more textures in your hat. And if you don't want them, you can also rub them out with a little bit of cornstarch, or you can sand them and buff them out later. So now that I've got the basic shape of my brim and my hat and my cordage, I'm going to go ahead and take some of this cornstarch and just put a little on my finger, just like that. You don't have to pinch and grab a whole lot, and then just kind of rub along it. And that's going to help you kind of press out all of your little fingerprints, any big gouges, and it kind of smooths it out a little bit. Now on colored clay, it will discolor the outside of the clay, but especially if you're thinking of sanding it or need to sand it for finishing, it's not really going to be a big deal. And even then, you can wash it off. It's not a huge deal at all. Okay, so now that we have that done, we just kind of pick it up and make sure that we have the shape that we want for our brim. And basically, that's as easy as it is. It doesn't take much to make these cute little witches hats. You can make like 100 of them in a day if you really are dedicated. But if you want to make it into a charm, all you have to do, and you can do this after baking, but I find it easier before, so you don't have to drill a hole and use glue or epoxy or resin or anything like that. And you just make like a little J in the end of your eye hook, and then hook it in there in the top, and then kind of gently press it down. And once you get to the base of the J, just start twisting your hook up so that the top kind of faces. And you want to make sure that it's straight up and down so that your charm will hang nice and straight and it's not all crooked and stuff. Then just go ahead and smooth out any little edges that you might have made with your fingers or the hook. And then I like to go in the end and kind of add in some extra little textures, maybe a crease here, kind of push it a little, and then a crease here. Just give it some character. Everybody loves a lot of character. I don't know anyone who doesn't love character. And so that's pretty much it. Then you just take this and you pop it on a sheet of parchment paper or any kind of non-greasy paper and put it in the oven for 30 minutes at 275. When it comes out, it's going to look a lot like this. The white kind of tends to discolor. You can change that by putting a foil tint over the top, but I'm just going to paint it so it doesn't make too much difference. If you have any more fingerprints or anything like that, you're just going to take a little piece of sandpaper, and you see this little nick at the bottom. You're just going to kind of gently sand and smooth it out the best you can. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect, but the most perfect you can make it before you finish it up and try to paint it, the better off it's going to be, because you're not going to have to worry about all those edges. But I'll do a separate video later on finishing up your polymer clay charms, because there is quite a bit of a process to make sure that they're perfectly sealed and glossy. But thanks so much for watching this video on these cute little polymer clay witches hat charms. Be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe so that I can keep on creating. And make sure to tell me in the comments what you'd like to see in the future. Thanks!